Before the world comes to know the name Pirate Hunter Zoro, before he becomes the right hand of a man destined to shake the world, he is profoundly alone, utterly, defiantly alone. A lone swordsman walking a path paved in silence and steel, a man whose dream is so colossal that it leaves no room for companionship. A man who decided, at the age when most of us were scared of the dark, that he would rather die than break a promise. Zoro is introduced to us as someone already hardened by loss, sharpened by a sense of purpose, and crystallized into something immovable. A man who does not hesitate, fear, nor bend. And yet, despite that impenetrable exterior lies a deeper truth. Zoro is not free. He is bound by a promise that has become a cage. This is the story of how Luffy liberates that swordsman, not from an oppressor, chains, or even violence, but from the curse of a directionless resolve, from the loneliness of a dream carried in solitude, from a purpose that would slowly but certainly become his grave. This is how Zoro found a reason to keep on living. Before he became a swordsman feared across the seas, Zoro was a boy with too much anger and far too little direction, training tirelessly in a small dojo in his village. His fists and swords struck everywhere, hitting everyone, yet achieving nothing. Strength was not the goal, it was merely the placeholder for something he could not yet name. Validation, recognition, purpose. And then there was Kuina. She was his rival, his tether to humanity, and his measure of what he lacked. She was faster, sharper, stronger, a mirror of what Zoro could become, and what he had yet to achieve. They fought endlessly, 2,000 times, and in each defeat, Zoro learned two truths. One, that he was not enough, and two, that he desperately wanted to be. Under a moonlit sky, they swore a simple promise. One of us will become the world's greatest swordsman. But Kuina's death shattered his fragile world. In her death, Zoro learned something that the world of One Piece teaches many children. Dreams are fragile, people even more so. When Zoro takes Kuina's sword, he declares he'll become the world's greatest in her stead, transforming his grief into a purpose. But purpose, when held by a child, can become a shackle. Zoro dedicates his life to a dream that now feels less like ambition and more like penance, a promise kept out of an incessant refusal to let grief consume him. This would in time form the mental prison that is Zoro's captivity, the belief that he must walk his dream alone, that companionship is betrayal, that needing others would be weakness, that his life only has value if he reaches the summit. Before the Navy ever ties him to a post, Zoro tied himself to a fate destined to be consumed by guilt and solitude. When we first see Zoro in the story, he isn't striving towards his dream. He is rotting, bound to a post in a marine base, sun beating down, blood drying on his skin, body warm to the limit. But here is the subtle tragedy. Zoro's suffering is self-imposed. Though he does not yet know it, Helmeppo has told him a lie. If he endures a month without food or drink while tied up, he will be freed. Zoro believes it. He trusts in the integrity of the world, or at least his captors, because his conviction is absolute. He does not suspect deceit. His code is that of a swordsman who faces trials head-on. He endures without complaint, because failing would mean failing himself, breaking his principles, and betraying his own dream. In reality, he has been fooled and betrayed. His undying trust becomes a glaring vulnerability. Zoro's captivity is paradoxical. He is shackled tighter far more by his conviction than any rope. He stands on the precipice of death because he refuses to compromise his principles. He will not join a tyrant. He will not break a promise. He will not betray what he stands for. But he is also unmistakably alone. And loneliness in One Piece is as dangerous as any sword. When Luffy first arrived at the execution grounds, instead of acting impulsively, he watched. Bound to a post like an animal, bloodied and starving, stood the infamous pirate hunter. Yet even in this state, Zoro held himself upright, radiating unmistakable defiance. Luffy had heard the stories of the terrifying swordsman who hunted pirates, but he didn't judge him by rumor alone. He judged by what he saw. And what he saw surprised him. Zoro endured punishment with absolute resolve and unwavering endurance. To Luffy, this was the first sign that Zoro's strength was both physical and principled. A man willing to die before breaking his word is a rare find in the world of pirates. Then Luffy noticed a detail that no one else had. A little girl's rice ball, crushed, stomped into the dirt, yet still something that Zoro accepted with quiet gratitude. "It's good," he said. Not for himself, but for her. Even starving, he protected her feelings instead of his pride. It was a small, almost mundane act, yet it revealed everything about him. Zoro's pride in battle and ambition was absolute, yet his integrity was measured by quiet, selfless acknowledgement of others. By eating the rice ball, he demonstrated restraint, empathy, and humility, qualities hidden beneath his otherwise impenetrable exterior. Luffy saw Zoro's potential for kinship, for a shared ideology. Despite his exhausted state, he was still unbroken, head held high, radiating quiet, dangerous integrity. Luffy recognized Zoro's spirit and offered him the first choice he had had in years, a chance to break free from manipulation, to realign with a code where loyalty was mutual and wasn't exploitative, to be a pirate on Luffy's crew. When Zoro accepted his offer, he chose freely for the first time in ages. He was liberated, freed from the belief that he must endure alone, from the trap of blind trust, from the isolation that had bound him to his dream like a chain. He would fight, live, and share a path with someone equally driven, and for the first time since his rival, Zoro met someone whose dream burned hotter than his own. In every other part of the world, joining a crew would mean giving up freedom. Joining Luffy meant the opposite. Zoro realized that he could chase his dream far more fiercely with his captain than he ever could have done alone. He had found someone who didn't restrict him, but in turn amplified his potential as a man worthy of following. The moment Luffy steps forward, the choice has already been made. From what he has seen, the honor, the endurance, the unwavering honesty tells him one truth. Zoro does not deserve to die in a lie. Helmeppo's promise was never going to be kept, for it was a weapon aimed at Zoro's integrity. Zoro endured because he believed his captors would honor their word. That very belief, his greatest strength, had been turned against him. Luffy sees it all clearly, and unlike anyone else, he treats Zoro's moral code as something sacred, not something to exploit. He stands between Zoro and Helmeppo's cruelty. Without hesitation, he confronts Morgan and the Marines because their authority is rotten and their word is meaningless. Zoro deserves a chance to fight on his own terms, not as a pawn in someone else's cruel game. When Luffy unties Zoro and returns his swords, he gives the swordsman a chance, the freedom to choose, and for the first time in a long time he does that. He takes his swords, stands tall, and draws a line that no one else, not even Luffy, can cross. "If you get in the way of my dream, I'll make you commit harakiri." Luffy smiles with glee in response, knowing how sacred one's dreams truly are, and that the idea that he would stand in the way of someone else's ambition was absurd. Luffy acknowledges Zoro's feelings more than anyone else could have. He gives the swordsman's dream recognition. He doesn't attempt to own Zoro's strength and instead offers him a place where he can burn brighter, as part of his pirate crew. This is the true liberation. Freedom from manipulation, from forced isolation, from a world that weaponizes trust. With Luffy, Zoro's integrity is no longer a liability, and instead it is honored. His swords are back in his hands, but more importantly, his choice is finally his own. For once, Zoro is not merely enduring and makes a choice for himself, and in that decision, he is free. When Zoro joins Luffy, the shift in his character is subtle. He stands with his swords at his side, retaining the autonomy and pride that define him. While his choice to obey the Navy's false promise was a decision made out of a concession to authority and a refusal to stand down from his principles, his agreement with Luffy manifested from a mutual recognition of their dreams' alignment. For the first time since Kuina's death, the path to the World Summit does not feel like a solitary climb. His dream remains entirely his, untouched, untainted, but it is now part of something larger. With Luffy, Zoro moves alongside someone who understands the sacredness of ambition, the cost fighting for it, and the moral rigor required to pursue it without compromise. He no longer carries the crushing weight of isolation or the fatalist belief that his dream must be born alone. Luffy offers a form of leadership that does not constrain him. He provides a space where Zoro's strength and principles are honored, not compromised, where his pursuit of greatness can coexist with trust, loyalty, and shared purpose. Liberation here takes on a new dimension. Zoro is freed from solitude, from the relentless pressure to uphold every promise alone, from the fear that reliance will end in betrayal. He joins a crew that will reinforce his values rather than undermine them. He trusts that his back is safe. He will not be forced into compromise or meaningless suffering. His dream to honor his friend's memory and become the world's greatest swordsman is no longer a solitary mission, as it is now transformed into a collective journey under a captain whose reckless certainty matches his own fire, whose dream burns so fiercely it lights the way for others. That is true liberation, freedom from solitude without surrendering his sense of self. Zoro carries his ambition forward, no longer alone, but fully himself, walking towards the dawn alongside someone who sees him with true clarity. Zoro's liberation deepens at Barity. Mihawk, the one who embodies Zoro's very dream incarnate, defeats him with the ease of a parent disciplining their child. But something strange happens next. Zoro doesn't break nor yield. Instead, he undergoes an evolution of character following his devastating loss. When he says, "Luffy, I will never lose again," he makes a vow that isn't only directed towards himself, but to his captain. This is new. Zoro has never made a promise to another living being since Kuina. But here, with blood pouring from his chest and his pride completely shattered, he vows to both his fallen rival and Luffy. Why would he do that? Because Luffy by this point has freed him from the burden of dreaming in solitude, and now Zoro feels an obligation, which isn't solely imposed from guilt or grief, but loyalty, the kind of bond that is built on the foundations of respect. Zoro is no longer by himself at the foot of the mountain. He climbs now with someone who believes in him, and belief in One Piece is the strongest form of liberation. During Nami's arc, Zoro is injured, exhausted and barely able to walk, and yet he laughs in the face of an enemy who nearly killed him, refusing to bow even when drenched in blood, because he knows that in freeing Nami, Luffy is dismantling the systems that ruin people's lives. His loyalty becomes a philosophical stance instead of a personal attachment. In Arlong Park, he witnesses Luffy's ideology manifest clearly for the first time. Luffy does not accept a world where people suffer unjustly, which aligns perfectly with Zoro's own moral compass. And so, without saying it, without addressing it, without needing confirmation, Zoro makes a second vow. This is the kind of man I will follow to the end. This is Zoro's liberation from purposeless wandering. He has found both his captain and his cause in Luffy. By the time the crew reaches Alabasta, Zoro has transformed. He meditates, trains consistently, and respects Luffy's decision without hesitation. In his duel with Mr. One, my own personal favourite Zoro fight, he reaches for and achieves a new swordsmanship milestone. He can cut steel, all because he made the profound realization that strength without purpose is hollow, but strength enhanced by it is unstoppable. He fights for his captain, for his crew, and for a future that now feels shared amongst the group. Luffy gave him that purpose, a horizon larger than his own dream, and Zoro embraces it wholeheartedly. No moment in One Piece encapsulates Zoro's loyalty more than Thriller Bark. When Kuma arrives with orders to take Luffy, Zoro does the unthinkable. He offers his life in exchange. This is the exact opposite of the boy he once was. The boy who lived for a personal promise, and threatened death to his captain should his dream ever be compromised. The boy who once believed that dreams had to be carried alone, now believes that Luffy's life has more value beyond imagination, more value than even his own. Zoro taking Luffy's pain acts as both a sacrifice and a declaration to his captain. Your dream matters more to me than my life. The swordsman who once walked alone now stands as a shield for the man he trusts most. This is Zoro fully freed from self-imposed exile, free from the belief that he must carry destiny alone. He has found his place, his purpose, his found family. And when Sanji finds him standing there, drenched in blood, refusing to fall, saying nothing happened, it is the ultimate expression of devotion. Love that isn't shown through words but championed through agony silently endured. For Zoro's trust in Luffy knows no bounds. When Zoro kneels before Mihawk, he bows before him as a man who once declared he would rather die on his feet than bend in loss. Yet here he chooses to submit regardless. Zoro's entire identity up to this point has been built on refusal, refusing to yield, refusing to compromise, refusing to accept anything that resembles dependence. His pride was his armor and a way to keep his promise to his friend intact, whilst proving to himself that he could stand alone. The day he told Mihawk, "Until I defeat you, I will not lose again," he meant it with the full weight of his soul. And now he kneels before that very same man, the man he declared he would be the greatest rival of. The tragedy of Marineford demonstrated to Zoro that even the strongest dreams can be destroyed if the people supporting it are not powerful enough. Power is no longer something he seeks for himself, as it transforms into something he must cultivate for another. Zoro kneels, deciding that protecting Luffy's future matters more than protecting his pride. And then there is Mihawk, a man whom no one can reach, a man who has lived his life at the summit for so long that he has grown accustomed to his solitude. For Hawkeye, empty bravado coupled with huge ambition is a common trait to those who naively challenge him, but a man who truly embodies a swordsman's resolve is rare. While Mihawk initially views Zoro's begging as weakness and quickly dismisses him, he soon comes to understand what it would take to force a man like Zoro to the ground. He understands that he isn't a broken warrior merely wallowing in his shame, but kneeling from a man sacrificing the last piece of pride he kept untouched in order to gain the strength necessary to protect somebody else's dream. Zoro is motivated by pure conviction, putting his valued pride to the wayside. That is what got Mihawk to respect his choice. He is a swordsman who has grown beyond aimless power, proving that he has the talent and ability to defeat the monkeys, but has found greater resolve in his purpose for gaining strength. A man who is not chasing the title of world's strongest swordsman for his ego, or even the title, but because his captain's dream depends on him becoming strong enough to bear that weight. Mihawk accepts Zoro as a disciple, recognizing the rare truth that a man who kneels for the right reason is more dangerous than a man who never kneels at all. What Zoro kneels to is responsibility, the responsibility of being the one who must stand beside the future king of pirates. Mihawk sees that. He sees the bond that Zoro has chosen, and he honors it with guidance. He chooses to train Zoro because he realizes that the man in front of him is a warrior willing to endure the greatest humiliation as long as it means that his captain won't endure further tragedy. Post-timeskip, Zoro is a new force entirely. He's grown in power, clarity, as well as introspection. He knows who he is, the warrior walking towards the world's summit. He knows what he stands for, which is embodied by his promise to his childhood friend, his belief in Luffy, and the future of the crew. And he knows that he is willing to do anything to achieve that. Zoro's liberation is complete because he is finally anchored. Luffy provided Zoro with exactly what he needed: direction towards new heights, purpose that expands, and a found family that will strengthen him. Zoro is now free to pursue his dream without suffocating through his principles. Through Zoro's story, Oda illustrates a truth that is often overlooked. Freedom is not just liberation from oppression. It is liberation from purposelessness, from isolation, from carrying your dreams alone. Zoro is freed by being understood upon the vast canvas of ambition. Most people could not even possibly fathom the scope of his goal, let alone relate to it. But in Luffy, Zoro discovers a future worth protecting, a dream worth sharing, a family worth dying for, a captain worth following, a reason to keep living beyond grief. Zoro chooses Luffy as an equal in spirit, and upon doing so allowed him to liberate his heart. Zoro begins as a lone blade wandering the world, cutting anything in his path except the one thing he truly needed: connection. And then when he meets Luffy, a boy who can liberate without conquering, who can inspire without demanding, Zoro is the first to join the Straw Hat Pirates because he is the first to recognize Luffy's truth. Following the right captain is another form of freedom. In choosing Luffy, Zoro did not have to abandon his dream, and in return Luffy gave him a place in history, in legend, and in the heart to those who care for him. Zoro is no longer a swordsman walking a lone path paved through solitude. He is the man who stands at the right hand of the future Pirate King, and that, more than any title, is his liberation.